Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to install PrimeNG in your Angular 20 application, and then we are going to display data from a live REST API, which is the fake store API, into a data table. This video is going to cover everything from how to install PrimeNG, which is currently in version 19, into your Angular 20 project. You know, the versions could cause a bit of confusion, so we'll try and cover everything when we start creating this project. And then for the fake store API, we're gonna make use of the products endpoints. As you can see, the fake store API has 4 resources or endpoints, as the case may be. It has the products, the cards, the users, as well as the login endpoints. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're gonna make use of the products endpoints. And you can see, to get all products, this is the endpoint, and the URL is https://fakestoreapi.com. Then the response is gonna come following this schema, which has the ID, the title, the price, the description, as well as the category and image, which is similar to what we have in this table. So we're gonna load the data we get from all products endpoints into this data table in our project. So it's going to be from a live REST API. So without wasting much time, let's get into the action. And if you are new to this channel, make sure you give it a like, make sure you subscribe, and with that, we can get started. So just like we always do on this YouTube channel, I'm going to start from the very start of how to create this project. So the first thing we want to do is to create a new Angular project. Let's check the Angular version of my machine. When I type in ng version, then it's going to show us the current Angular version I'm running on this machine. As you can see, I currently have Angular 20 on my machine, as well as npm 10. So this is the latest version of Angular, so you can't get it better than this. With that out of the way, let's create a new project. So I'm going to clear this off, and then I'm going to type in ng new, and then I'm going to call it ng-prime, which is the name of our project. And then we're going to answer some prompts. So the first prompt we're going to answer is, do I want to create a zoneless application without zone.js? This is still in developer preview. I'm going to say yes, and then it asks my styling format. I'm going to stay with the CSS, so I'm going to press enter, and I do not want server side generation or pre-rendering, so I'm going to say no, and then I'm going to press enter. And with that, the new Angular project is going to get generated for us. So I'm going to pause the video, and then once it's done, we continue from there. As you can see, Angular has successfully created a new project for us. So I'm going to seed into that project by typing in cd ng-prime, and then I'm going to press enter. So we're now in the roots of the project. So the first thing I want to do before I open this up in Visual Studio Code is to generate our environments folder, because we're going to configure our REST API in the environment.development.ts file. So to do that, all I'm going to do is to type in the command ng generate environment. Yeah, I spelled that correctly. So our environment folder is going to get generated for us. It usually generates two files rather, the environment.ts file as well as the environment.development.ts file. So the next thing is to install the right packages. So the right packages installation can be seen in the documentation. If you head over to primeng.org/installation, you can see you can install using npm, you can install using yarn, as well as you can install using pnpm. So now we're going to make use of npm because that's what we used in creating this project. We have npm installed in our machine. So to do that, I head straight to the terminal, then I paste in npm install at primeng/themes. This is the first thing I want to install. After that, then we can now install PrimeNG itself. So just like we did earlier, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to wait for the installation to get completed. As you can see, the PrimeNG/theme package has been installed. So now I'm going to install PrimeNG itself. So let's just remove the /themes as well as the @ sign. So I'm going to press enter, and then let's wait for the installation to get complete. So you can see we are presented with a bunch of errors. It says unable to resolve dependency tree. This is why I installed it separately from the PrimeNG/themes. So installing PrimeNG brings a lot of issues in Angular 20 because there's a discrepancy between the packages in terms of the version. This is Angular 20, and then PrimeNG is currently at version 19, so there is a bit of clash here and there. So it's gonna throw this error with incompatibility with the Angular animations, Angular common 19, which is it's expecting and all. So to get rid of this, all you need to do is just to add the /false flag. This is going to help you override that error. We need to install it forcefully, although npm wants you not to do this, but this is probably the only way you can get rid of that error and successfully install PrimeNG in your Angular 20 projects. As you can see, PrimeNG is now successfully installed in our project, and now with this I can open up our projects in Visual Studio Code by pressing in code and a full stop. So when I press enter, Visual Studio Code is gonna get opened for us. So let me increase the font size of our VS Code so that you can see better. I don't know if this is too big, but I mean it can be too big actually. Like, I mean, it's all for the benefit of everyone out there. So before I get started, a few things you should know. If you are not familiar with Angular 20, if you are familiar with previous versions of Angular, you notice your app.html is supposed to be app.component.html. Yes, the naming convention for Angular 20 has changed. You no longer have the app.component.ts file, you now have app.html. And then for the app.component.ts file, it's no longer named using that convention, it's now app.ts. So the components, that is the suffix that comes after the name of your files, which is component, service, have been removed in Angular 20. So if you create a service, you just see, let's say you called your service login or auth, you just see auth.ts. So this could create a bit of confusion, but that means anytime you want to create a new project or a new component or service rather, you need to add that in front of your file. For instance, if you are generating a new component, you can just do ng generate component table, then you just put an hyphen and then components to signify it's a component. If it's a service, you put an hyphen and then you signify it's a service. So this is the convention we're going to follow in this tutorial. So before I proceed, let's generate a component and a service. We're going to need a component and a service in this project. So to do that, I'm just going to head over back to the terminal and then I'm going to clear everything we have currently. So all I'm going to do is just run ng generate components. Then I'm going to call this table components. This is where we will display our data table, and then I'm going to create a service by typing in ng generate service, and then this is going to be, let's just call it table service. So I'm just going to say table dash service, and then I'm going to press enter. So as you can see, our table component is created for us as well as our table service. Let's head back to Visual Studio Code, and you can see we now have table dash components and then we have table dash service. If I had not included this hyphen dash component as well as this hyphen dash service, everything would have been named as table, and by the time you import your service into your table component ts file, there will be a clash, there will be a confusion. Angular is going to get confused. So I'm going to head straight to my environment.development.ts file. Here we are. So this is where we are going to quickly configure our REST API. So to do that, all I'm going to do is just to type in uppercase API underscore URL, and I'm going to say I'm going to use a colon, and then I'm going to type in the base URL of our API. Probably I should just grab it from the fake store API. So if I head over to the fake store API and then I scroll, let's go back, let's head back, and then I go to the landing page. So I can just grab this https://fakestoreapi.com, and then I'm going to copy that, head back to the browser, to the code, Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to click on save. This is all we need to do in our environment.development.ts file. So I'm going to close this, and then the next thing is we're going to configure the app.config.ts file. So this is where we have our provide HTTP client. This is where we need to have our provide HTTP client, because without this we will not be able to make use of the HTTP clients or whatever way of consuming a REST API in our service. So to do this, all I need to do is just probably after the provide router, I'm going to add a comma, then press enter, then I'm going to type in provide, still in uppercase. We need to make this lowercase. So provide HTTP client, and then I'm going to add the parenthesis, and it's already been imported for us right above. You can see we now have provide HTTP clients. With this, we can now set up our service, which is going to be the next step of this short tutorial. Before I proceed, I think we need to create an interface. This is the shape we expect our data to come. So I'm going to create a new folder called interface, and then within the interface folder, I'm going to have a file called api-interface.ts. I mean, probably I should just say API. Okay, yeah, I think this is cool. API-interface. I'm going to press enter, and then within the API-interface.ts file, let's show how we expect to receive our data. Before I proceed further, I want to see how the shape of our data is going to be once again. So heading straight to the fake store API documentation or website, where we have this fetch API, fakeapistore.com/products. I'm going to click on try it, because we can also load the data on this page. So I'm going to click on try it, and you can see it loads out a JSON, an object rather. So now you can see we have an ID, we have a title, we have a price description, category, image, then we have a rating. So the rating has its own object. So in our interface interface, we need to structure it in this manner. So what do I mean by this? Heading back to the Angular application, I'm going to type in exports interface because we're going to be exporting this interface to our service. So I'm going to call this products because we're trying to get an array of products. And then I'm going to open the curly braces, and then the first thing I want to type in is the ID. Then we have the number. ID is number, then name is string, the price is a number, the description is a string, the image, not image URL, the image is a string as well, then the category is also a string. I think we have everything we need right here. Then for the rating, we're going to create it separately. So I'm going to say exports interface, then I'm going to call this rating. Then I'm going to open the curly braces, and then we have the rates as well as the counts, which are both numbers. So we're going to import the rating within our product interface. So I'm going to import it this way, rating, then call the rating from this other interface we created. So our structure of our data is well configured, and we can utilize this inside our service. So I'm going to head straight to the table service.ts file. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comment section of this YouTube tutorial. Back in the service, we need to import a lot of things. We need to import HTTP clients, we need to import the environment, we need to import the products interface, we also need to import the inject objects as well as injectable. Okay, injectable is already imported for us. Then we need to import computed as well. So instead of mentioning all these things, let's just get started with this. The first thing I want to do is to use computed, which is available as a signal in Angular 20 to configure our REST API. So what do I mean by this? I'm going to create a variable called REST API, and I'm going to say REST API is equals to computed, which is in Angular core. As you can see, we now have computed injected into the Angular core package. So now we're going to make use of a fat arrow, and within the fat arrow, I'm going to open up a backtick. So within the backtick, I'm going to import the environment. So you can see we have environment, which we also need to import from environment.development. So it's going to be environment dot, then we have the API URL, which we created earlier, if you can still remember. So now this is going to be a / because we are trying to get all the products from our fake store API. So it's going to be / products, and then REST API variable is now configured. You can see with this, we now have the API configured by making use of computed, which I think is nice. Now the next variable we're going to create is a private variable. Then spell private properly. So private, I'm going to say HTTP is equals to inject, which we need to import as well. I'm going to press enter. So and we're importing the HTTP client. So I'm going to type in HTTP client, and if I scroll to the top, you can see inject has been imported, the inject object has been imported, as well as the HTTP client. So these are the first two things we need to do. Then the next thing we need to do is to create the get products function, the function that needs us to create the get product. So you can see we no longer need the constructor. Before signals came out, the new versions of Angular, we need the instructor to inject the HTTP client into this service, but now the constructor is no longer needed. So I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm going to add a comment that says get products. So I'm going to create the function called get products, and then open a parenthesis, then a curly brackets. Then within the get products, I'm going to return. Okay, before we proceed, I'm going to type this as an observable because we need to convert the observable to signal by making use of the to signal API. So to do that, I'm going to convert this to an observable by saying observable, and then it's going to be a type of products, which is our interface, if you can remember. So it's type of products and it's an array. So we're going to have it as an array. Now we have an error that says a function whose declared type is neither undefined void nor any must return a value. So we need to return a value. So to do that, we're going to type in the return keyword, and then we're going to type in this dot http dot get products, which is our interface, which is expecting an array. And then I'm going to say this dot REST API. I'm going to call the REST API, which we created at the top on line 11. So with that, our REST API is configured. So to make use of the to signal API, the first thing I'm going to do is to create a product observable. So I'm going to say private products. I'm going to give this a $sign to signify it's an observable. So I'm going to say observable, and then I'm going to call the products interface array, and then I'm going to say is equal to this dot get products, which is the get products function. Then finally, we can now create our public variable so that this is going to be available in our template. So to do that, I'm going to type in public, and I'm going to say products. So public products is equal to signal, which we need to import as well. So to signal, and I'm going to open the bracket. Before I proceed, it says cannot find name to signal. The IntelliSense is not importing to signal for us. I mean, this to signal is available in the Angular /code/rxjs interop. Let's import it manually and see if this error is gonna we're gonna get rid of this error. So I'm gonna type in import to signal, then from Angular /code/. So we're now getting a new error. It says it's expect 1 or 2 argument, but got 0. So now let's add in the argument. So the first argument we're gonna add is the observable, which is this dot products, as you can see. Then the second argument we're gonna add is the initial value, which is an empty array. So I'm gonna type in a curly bracket, and then I'm gonna type in initial value, and then it's gonna be a type of empty array. So this is all we need to do in the service. Now the service is fully configured, and we can now inject it and consume it in our table component. So heading straight to the table components right above, then the first thing I'm going to do here is to create a products type. So I'm going to type in products, and then I'm going to say products, then I'm going to type in the interface, which is products, and it's expecting an empty array by default. We have an error that says initializer is not available, so you can get rid of that by typing in the exclamation mark. Then the next thing is to inject the table service into this component. So to do that, all we need to do is to type in table service, then inject, which we've not imported. And if I scroll to the top, you can see we now have inject, and then the table service, we need to inject this in this component as well. So both have now been injected into the table component. So now that we have the table service available, we need to make use of the ng on init lifecycle hook. This loads immediately the page is made available in the browser. So I'm going to type in ng on init, and then I'm going to add a parenthesis, and then add the curly braces. Then we can now say this dot table service. I don't like this suggestion, it's giving me, it's confusing, so I'm just going to paste it. This dot table service dot, within the table service we have our products. I don't know why that's not getting suggested for us. So it's supposed to be this product, because it's public, we should be able to consume it here. This dot table service dot products. So I'm gonna, oh sorry, this is supposed to be lowercase. The table service is supposed to be lowercase still, not this uppercase table service. So it's supposed to be this dot table service dot product, because this is the variable that holds the table service. So with this we can now get the instance of every function we create within the table service. So this is all we need to do to make sure that this loads properly. We can just console.log this exact instance of the table service by pasting it into the console.log. Then I'm gonna save. We would not be able to see this available in the browser yet, because within our app HTML we're gonna see the template. So if I load this is going to be what gets displayed. So I'm gonna clear everything right here, and then I'm going to type in the selector, which does not need to have a closing tag. So all we need to do is just to add the /, and then we need to import it because it's not available in app.ts. So we need to import the app.component within the import array of the app.ts file. So I'm going to say table components, and then that gets rid of the error in the app.html file. So we can see this warning that says router outlet is not used. This is because we don't have a router in this project. So I'm going to get rid of the router outlet, and then I'm going to save everything we've done so far, then head back to the terminal, and then I'm going to clear everything in the terminal, then run ng serve to compile the project for us. And then with that we can now check the console if we have the data available from the Fixstore API. So as you can see, the compilation is so fast. It was completed within 4.5 to 8 seconds. So let's head back to the browser, and I'm going to head to localhost 4200, open up the console. You can see the table component is being loaded. It says table component works, and then in the console, let's see if we have the data. When you extend, you can see this signifies that the data is being loaded. If I check the network, I'm going to reload the page, and you can see in the network we have the response from the data in the network. You can see we have the data, and there are 20 in total, because every array starts from 0. So this is 20, and then we can just consume this data and display it. You can see the ratings as its own special objects, just like we structured in our interface. So everything is displaying properly. Let's head back to our app, the table component.ts file. So I think this is all we need to do in this file. So the next step is to display the data in our table component.html file. So this is pretty much easy. I'm going to clear everything. Remember, we're making use of PrimeNG. So the first tag we're going to make use of is the p table. So I'm going to say p-table, then I'm going to press enter. Then within the p-table, let's see if this error, okay, it says p table is not a known element. If p table is an Angular component, verify that it is included in the @component.import of this component. So this is where we make use of the custom element schema. I thought we'd be done with this by Angular 20, but anyways, let's head straight to the app component.cs file. It seems there's still one more thing we need to do, which is to import the schemas. So to do that, right below the import array, I'm going to type in schemas, and then within the schemas, I'm going to type in custom element schema, which is being imported in at Angular core. So I'm going to save that, then head back to the table component.cs file. You can see the error is gone. So next thing, we're going to create an ng template, in lowercase, ng-templates tag, and then within the ng-templates tag, remember the p table is coming from PrimeNG. We're going to have a table row. Yeah, this is what is going to configure our table header. This is just pure HTML. So in the table header, the first thing we want to display is the names, and then I'm going to duplicate this like 5 times. Then after the names, we're going to have the image. Then after the image, we have the price, then the category, then finally we have the reviews. And with that, we've configured our table header. So the next thing is right below the closing tag of the ng template. This is the body where we display all our data. So I'm going to type in ng-template once more, which is our Angular tag, and then within that tag we have our table row. This one now has our table data. So we have the td tag. So within the td tag, we're going to display 5 data: the names, the images, the price, categories, and reviews. So I'm just going to duplicate this 5 times for now without having any data within it. So now there are some attributes we need to include in our table p table tag. The first one is the value. We need to bind in the value, which is the data being returned from our service. So to do this, I'm going to open up a quote, and then I'm going to type in this dot product, not product service, this dot table service. I'm just going to grab it here because this is what displays our data, and then I'm going to paste it right here within the value, and then I'm going to add a parenthesis at the end. So as you can see, our value is being binded to this data, which means the data is now available in this table. And then the next thing we need to do is to bind the table style. These are all available in PrimeNG. You can check the documentation for more information. So I'm just going to type in table style, and then it's going to be is equals to I'm going to configure the width. We can make it a mean width. So I'm going to say mean width. We're going to give that probably 60 rem. Let's make that 60 rem, and then we're going to add a quote to the mean width as well, a single quote, so that gets rid of the error. And then within the ng template, we need to specify to the prime table the prime table that this is an header. So I'm going to say p, then uppercase T, which is now going to be a template, and then we're going to say is equals to header. So PrimeNG now knows this is an header. Then for the body as well, we need to signify this. So I'm going to say p templates, and then this is going to be is equals to no longer an header, now it's a body. So sorry, it's supposed to be below here. I'm going to cut that out, and then we're going to be supposed to be here. So now we have the attributes properly configured. Now to display the data, we're going to make use of a very important keyword, which is let-product. So I'm going to say let-product. So this allows us to loop the data into the body of the project. So the first thing we want to do is to open up double curly braces or interpolation, and then I'm going to type in product.title. I thought I was supposed to get IntelliSense for that based on the fact that we're making use of an interface. I'm surprised that is not coming up. So the next one is the image. So we're going to display the image. Of course, when you check the table header after names, which is also our title, we're going to display the image. So to display the image, I'm going to make use of string interpolation once more. No, this is an image. We can't just make use of string interpolation. Instead, we're going to make use of an img tag. So I'm going to open an img tag right within the td tag, and then I'm going to bind the src attributes. Remember, this is the source that allows you to display the image. So I'm going to say product.image. Yeah, not uppercase but lowercase. Product.image. Then the alt attributes, probably we might just add in, we're going to bind it for best practice. So I'm just going to say product.title, and then the width, probably for it not to get too big, I'm going to set the width to 50, and then I'm going to give it a class of shadow-4. Like I said, you can check the documentation for PrimeNG data table. You can get all this information and design it however way you want. So the next one is the price. So to display the price, I'm going to say products.price. Then I'm going to make use of the currency pipe. So the currency pipe, I'm going to type in currency and then make use of a colon. Then I'm going to make it uppercase USD. So it's going to come in form of USD. Now we have an error. No pipe found with name currency. So what does this mean? That means we need to configure this in our table component.ts file, but we can do that later. But for now, let's just display the rest of the data. So the next one is the category. This one is pretty much straightforward. All I need to do is just to type type in products.category, and then finally we have the rating. So for the rating, once again, I'm not going to make use of string interpolation, pardon me. So I'm going to make use of the p rating tag, which is only available in PrimeNG data table. So for the rating, I'm going to bind using the ng model by making use of banana in a box. So I'm going to type in ng model, and then we're going to say is equals to, open up our quotes, and then I'm typing product.rating.price. Remember, the rating has an extra object, so it's product.rating.price. Then we're going to make this read only so that it's not editable, and then I'm going to set it to true before we set the cancel option to false. So with this we are good to go, except we still need to deal with the issue of the currency pipe. So to do this, let's head back to the app, to the table components, and on the table components we have a lot of importation to do to ensure that everything goes smoothly. So we're going to import a lot of things from PrimeNG table. So the first thing we're going to import is the table module itself. So quickly at the top of the file, I'm going to type in import, then I'm going to import the table module from PrimeNG/table. Another thing I'm going to import is the common module. So the common module is going to get rid of the error we have for the currency pipe. When we inject it, we'll see if that works. Then another thing we need to import is the button module. We also need to import the forms module. Remember, we make use of ng model. Then next thing we are going to import is the tag module. So I'm going to type in tag module from PrimeNG/tag, and we need to import the rating module as well. Remember, we made use of the ratings. So I'm going to type in import rating module from PrimeNG/rating, and that's all. So I'm going to inject every one of these into our import array. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in. I think IntelliSense handles everything for us. As you can see, immediately we injected the common module, the currency pipe error disappears. So I'm going to save everything we've done so far, and then probably let's compile this and then run it in the browser. Oh, it's already compiled. So let's head straight to the browser and see if we have any error in the console and if the data gets displayed on PrimeNG table. So we have an error. It says table components or tview is null. It says tview is null. I think this could be due to the fact that we need to make this products, the instance of our products public, our product service. We need to make our table service public. So to do that, I'm going to add the public keyword. I mean, this means it's supposed to make the data available everywhere in the service. And so I'm going to head back to the browser, and as you can see, the data loads on the table, and then for some reason in our console it still loads an empty array. I guess this is because the initial value is an empty array and it doesn't get to load the data by the time the page displays on the engine on its life cycle. So what I'm going to do is just to close the browser, and you can see we have all our data displaying. We have the names, you have the image, you have the price, category, as well as the reviews. But for some reasons, I think this review is not loading the data properly. You can see it only has is only showing the same rating review, which is 0 for all the products. Every other thing is dynamic. You can see we have the men's clothing category. This is a jewelry, this is also a jewelry, and this is an electronic. So the only thing that is not consistent here is the rating, is the reviews. So what I'm going to do is to head back to the table component.html file. So I'm going to head back, and then this is supposed to be under the rating. It's supposed to be products.rating.rate, not price.rate. I made an error there. So I'm going to save, head back to the browser, and you can see the ratings are now dynamic. You can see this is 5-star women's clothing, and then another women's clothing has a 5-star, while for men's clothing we also have a couple of products with 5 stars as well. So that is it for this tutorial. You can customize this table however way you want, but subsequently I intend to create more content around the PrimeNG data table because I find it fascinating. It has, when you scroll down this documentation, you find so many beautiful samples. I don't know why it's not loading properly on my page. They have for pagination, they have features for sorting and every other thing. If you want me to create something special around the PrimeNG data table, you can leave your comments in the description box, and I'm going to take a keen and important look at it. So thank you very much for watching this one, and I'll catch you again in the next one.